Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello, it's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 247 of the new series of the Cognitive Podcast. And this one is called A Fine Gallop, because that's the only way I can describe that past week. The lovely picture at the top of the notes where I was running in the mountain gallop in Tehachapi with my son, who's far, far ahead of me at this point. But you can see the scenery. And Tehachapi right now is in a very golden area. Everything is bleached and dried out by the sun. And it's rather pretty up there now. So I thought I'd give you one of the scenic pictures. But there was so much more to this week. Please comment. You are very welcome to comment. Your comments can go either on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, or they can go to our group on Ravelry. In the meantime, in the warm thanks department, Chris got to talking about multitasking, saying that she enjoyed what I said about multitasking, and that she's often heard that multitasking is impossible. And Chris agrees with me. She says, I just think they didn't study a mum, that is a mother. Making dinner is the ultimate in multitasking for Chris. I am making 3 distinct meals, she says, for 2 fussy eaters and the 2 adults, and somehow managed to get them onto the table at the same time. How could you possibly do that without multitasking? I agree with that. I think one of the things we still struggle with in research is that it is still very masculinist. That the vast majority of researchers over the years have been men, and they often do research from a male point of view. And I don't want to jump on them too much, but say that they just simply aren't aware what life is like as a woman. And when you get into a topic like this, they certainly aren't aware what it's like to be a woman with several young children trying to do things around the house or trying to do anything with the kids in line. And I think the people you have to ask about that also are the men who try. Because there's a lot of men out there that are perfectly good fathers that experience this as well. But if they're in a standard 8-hour job in a workplace outside the home, I don't think they realize what it would be like to have this going on nonstop most of the day. Okay, but having said that, thank you, Chris. And then there's Turbo Gal. Turbo Gal, after I talked about driverless cars, sent a link to an article, and I have the link in the show notes. And she sent the link. The link is about driverless car technology being usefully loaded onto cars with drivers as a means of improving the safety of cars with human drivers. And that software allows tricks such as seeing into blind spots as one example. So thanks for an interesting read there, Turbo Gal. Much appreciated. I also want to thank the folks who are signing up for CFR 11. Sign-ups have been somewhat slow, but that's okay, because we've got a nice group, the ones we have. So please do sign up. We do need to start saying something definitive. We are not going to get any discount at the hotel at this rate, as far as I can tell. That is one problem, that we're just not bringing in high enough numbers. But I really do appreciate the signing up. If anybody has a class they would like to offer, that would be great. I also would like to thank my communities in this group, most of all, everybody listening, of course, people on the ground in the Santa Clarita Valley, people on Reddit, and the people on Finch. I really appreciate the support. You can see a picture of my 2 finches hanging out again. They're in Taipei, I think, in that picture. And one of them is now back in Iceland finishing up Reykjavik. And the other one is, I think, hanging out in Taipei because she finished Edinburgh. And I just have been thinking about where's a good spot to send her in the late summer where she won't fry. Taipei came up and I thought, well, do 5 days there and think about it. She's actually been there now closer to 10 days. But there we go. My birds. Meanwhile, all the information for Cognitive Fiber Retreat 11 is in the show notes. There is a link to it. It has a section that's got a header in red type that says Cognitive Fiber Retreat 11. And then it says all info is right here, and here is the link. It will take you to Ravelry, to the information thread. Okie dokie. Now, all the information you need is there, so I'm going to skip that. Let us go on to what's on my hooks and needle. Well, I did finish the first of my lacy summertime shrugs for this summer. It is in blue. It is in a Noro blend. Noro has a million blends, and they're all just slightly different from each other. And this one, you can check the show notes, but basically what I liked about this was the color. And it's also got a high cotton content, as well as I think it has silk. I know it has silk, polyamide, which will help to breathe a little bit too, and just a slight touch of wool. I really like this one. It came out really nicely. It's hard to get a picture of the lace though, because I'm always taking pictures from the back, so the lace is a bit obscured. So the first picture shows you the lace. If you look at it, you'll see the V's and the shells alternating in it. Now, this is the pattern from Lion Brand Yarns, but I turned it 90 degrees because I made it too long. And this is what I did the last time I made one of these when I was going to Fiji. Made it too long and realized that's okay. If you make it long, that just means you're going to use the rectangle with the long side running from basically your elbow to your elbow across your back. The pattern in Lion, they want you to turn that 90 degrees so that you're working from the shortest edge, and you work that for a much longer distance because you're much shorter edge, okay? And you're now going to be crocheting down the long side. Okay, in the previous one, you were chaining on the long side. All right, so when you do it that way, which is how Lion wants you to do it, then you can just make a giant rectangle, fold it around your arms, and seam it. The way I've been doing it, I just make the rectangle to go across the back and across the shoulder blades, and then I connect it and I crochet the sleeves on in double crochet in the round. It comes out looking really good. You can, in other words, do this scarf in either of the two possible orientations. Why am I telling you this, and why do I keep coming back to it? Because it means if you get it wrong, if you do the wrong measurement, you don't have to pull it out. You can simply rotate it and do it in the other direction. This is an extremely basic scarf. You really need to know how to chain, do double crochet, and then read the instructions because the V stitches and the shells in the pattern are just double crochet stitches. So this is essentially double crochet plus chaining. And the way I do it, when I rotate it 90 degrees, well, I double crochet the arms. I connect the top edges in double crochet, and I just go across and double crochet. I've been surprised because when I take it to a knitting store and I show it to them, they say, but I really like the contrast between the double crochet on the sleeves and the lace on the back. So do I. But the important thing is, if you're not confident with crocheting, this looks very scary, but this is actually a beginner project. And if you're willing to rotate it to get a different angle on it, if you're willing to just connect the corners to go around and make an armhole for yourself, and then double crochet an arm on it, you can do this. I mean, this is it. If you can chain and you can double crochet, you can do this in either direction. And if you think you're getting the measurements wrong, never fear, just flip it in your head 90 degrees. Having said that, stash toss, I added a new skein, so we're at 57 in and 30 out. And I immediately started another lacy shrug from that skein, so I'm going to have 3 this summer. I don't mind. I did no work on my bigger projects. The alfresco, I have finished the second rectangle. This is only 2 rectangles, seamed at the shoulders and then down the sides. So I have sewn the sides, I have sewn the shoulders. Now I'm adding to the lower edge. I'm going to probably stop when I sit down and do it again and just do a nice edging along the neckline, probably shells. And then I will finish the bottom. Actually, I won't. I will do also a nice edging along the sleeves because they're kind of puckered out the way it's set up now. And the edging should help with that and should pull the puckering in. And finally, I will take the very last of the skein and finish lengthening it and putting shells on the bottom there. I have a lot of yarn left in this. This was 5 skeins of a cotton-based yarn from Queensland, and I quite like it. You can also see a picture of my second shrug in progress. This is the purple lacy shrug. This one I am doing the way Lion intends. So I am increasing it. I chained on the short side, and I am adding to the long side as I go. I will not stop and do the double crochet sleeves. I will just make one long rectangle and then fold it and seam it, because I want to do that at least once. However, I have to say I can already see why my scheme works better, because this works great going around the thickest part of my shoulder under the armpit, but then is going to be kind of too wide, I think, going down my arms. So we will see. We will see. But it's nice because in this orientation, you can see I'm really working with, this is another type of Nuro that has no wool in it, but is polyamide silk. Might have a touch of nylon, and then cotton. There we go. And you can see that one of the reasons I decided to do this, I started it in the longer orientation and realized I didn't like what the stripes were doing. This one actually stripes. And so I did it on the short edge, and you can see that the stripes are coming out very nice and even and predictable there. So I decided I'll go with the Lion patterns orientation here and just try to crochet about 29 inches of this. Takes forever, but they do. But they're fun, they're easy, and you get a very satisfying result. I had the air conditioning cranked up too much here in my study studio yesterday, and to my surprise, I got cold and put on the first shrug, and it worked great. Meanwhile, no work on the quilt squares. Bit of a disappointment. I really wanted to do that this summer, and they don't seem to be happening. Summer's not over yet. We shall see. But I always have so many projects going, you know, you kind of hope you're going to finish. Dizzy Blondes. I am still spinning the Lisa Souza BFL Gaverny. The colorway is Gaverny. This is the BFL. And she told me it was a little felty, and she gave me some extra fiber as a bonus. It is a little felty, but it's not so bad that I think it's damaging the ply that I'm making. This one I'm going to be doing for a long time. I have a lot of this. I want to get as many bobbins as I can, and then it's going to be a 3-ply. It might be a 2-ply. Either way, it's going to be a worsted weight sweater by the time I'm done with it. I am spinning this on the electric eel 6.1. Strategy. I have noticed there is a meme going around about the Gen Z stare, or Gen Z, for those of you who aren't Americans. And in this, they make fun of the fact, Gen Z people, when they think you're being stupid, there's this kind of generation-wide thing they do in America. They give you this sort of glazed-eyed stare. And there's a lot of interesting things about Gen Z in America. And I don't like to do this. I don't like to generalize based on age cohort. But one of the things I am noticing in therapy is how Gen Y and Gen Z, and sometimes the millennials, tend to come into therapy and they have already diagnosed themselves. Now, a lot of people do that, going into any kind of healthcare treatment, so I can't particularly blame them for that. But they get themselves hung up in it, that they read it online and they say, oh, that's me. Now, first of all, that is really tempting. There is a reason why in my home state, you get a psychology doctorate, but you are not allowed to call yourself a psychologist. You are not a psychologist till you pass the licensing exam. Why? The licensing exam is only a guarantee of minimum competence. It doesn't say you're a good psychologist, but it says you are a psychologist. Okay, so what's the pathway there? Well, the pathway to that, by the time you finish the master's and the doctorate, you're going to have done about 5 years full-time of seeing patients. Why? Why is that so important? Well, first of all, this is mental health. You can really hurt someone if you're careless with your diagnoses. Now, having said that, in mental health, when you're in the therapy categories in behavioral health, when you're not a medical doctor, you're pretty much protected by the people above you, the medical doctors and the psychiatric nurse practitioners. If they're on the case, they carry the biggest responsibility because they can prescribed meds. Even so, we can do our fair share of damage if we're not careful. And I don't think anybody goes into it and does it intentionally unless something's really wrong with them. But you really have to go into this field prepared. And when I talk about the damage we can do, to be honest, most of it isn't done to our patients. It's us doing it to ourselves. That we have an ethic that's fairly tight in psychology. It's very strict compared to the other disciplines, and this is just my opinion. And the reason we have it is we're doing things like we're allowed to talk a little bit about meds with patients, and we do forensic testing. And it really matters that we learn what we're doing and that we apply it with care and respect. So you don't just get out there and be a psychologist. You have to get out there and study and train under other qualified people. And they have to approve your work and sign off on it before you can apply for the license. And this is very good. This is how it should be. Why am I saying all this? Because if you read up on yourself on Google and you say, oh, I have this diagnosis, you actually have no right to do that, and you have no realistic way to know if you're even correct. We work in the field for a long time before we are qualified and licensed because it is so easy to make that mistake, to go in, read something and go, oh, well, there you are. I worry about getting my work done on time, so I must have obsessive compulsive disorder. No, you don't, probably. There are many other qualifiers. It takes a long time to learn all this stuff, to learn what the diagnoses are, but even more, it takes longer to see it and to recognize it as opposed to someone who's simply annoying or kind of a jerk. Okay? The popular fad right now is OCD. Everybody comes in and says, I have obsessive compulsive disorder. No, you don't. I have not yet met a patient in the last 5 years who actually has OCD and who has said they have OCD. Okay? Now, why am I saying all this? Because what's going on instead is people are legitimately scared. They perceive they're having a problem and they start trying to explain it and they want help. And this gets more complicated. A lot of times they believe to get help, they have to come in with a clinical illness. Nobody will help them unless they can show they're kind of crazy. The answer is no. There's a lot of therapists who will help you, and there's a lot of insurance in America that will actually pay for that. A lot of it has to do with your clinician understanding how all this works. Did I mention there's a license involved? And that's why, you don't just guess. Okay, so the important thing is people come rushing in and they ask for a diagnosis, and they don't understand that this is minimizing themselves, that they are training themselves out of success. And they're doing it because they think that'll get them help in a lot of cases, but not all. There are people who are doing it just as an excuse for bad behavior. Instead of me changing, you have to change. You have to accept I have this problem and you have to treat me differently. Instead of them saying, I'm going to fix my problem. Okay. The downside of all this, and the reason I'm bringing this up is there is a trend that I see a lot of people just minimizing themselves. And people don't do this lightly. They do it because they have a reason. They believe they have something to gain, and it's not a greedy thing. They're trying to get help. They think nobody's listening or nobody's watching out for them. Problem is, when you're minimizing yourself, often that leads to bigger consequences. People stop respecting you. People stop trusting you. People stop expecting you to do well. That can have real-world consequences. You can lose your partner over that. Your kids can start to hate you. You can lose your job, or you can lose promotions on your job. Minimizing yourself is not a strategy. And it's a kind of a confusion that we're seeing a lot of right now. It's sort of like everybody wants to have a mild mental health problem. The other fad, we're leaving this one, but one of the fads for a long time was, well, I have autism. Oh boy. No, you may have some symptoms. Most humans have some symptoms. There's a lot of symptoms, But people are trying to get other people to let them off the hook, to cut them a break, to be nicer to them, to help them in some way. It doesn't work. It really doesn't work. I have to tell you, I think where people respect you and want to work with you and look up to you and trust you is when you go the other direction. When you say, I have faith in myself. I can help myself. I don't know how to do this, but I can learn. I will go back and take a class if I must. I will find someone to teach me. But whatever happens, I'm not going to just sit down and give up. I am not helpless. I am self-motivated and I am autonomous. I am a grown-up. You've heard all these different versions of this. Now you have to be careful. Let's be honest. It's not a meritocracy out there. But you have to take what you've been given and try to maximize it. And walking around saying, I can't help it, I have to be this way, I can't change, I can't do things, I can't blah, blah, blah. Okay, that may work and that may make you feel good right now, but it isn't going to give you much in life. It isn't going to make you feel successful. It isn't going to make you feel accomplished. It isn't going to help you meet life goals. It's going to set a lousy example for the people around you. And you're not going to end the game feeling very happy. Do not minimize yourself. Do not diagnose yourself. Do not attribute issues and problems to yourself that you do not have. If you have problems, yes, you go to the right people for help. Sure, I've been to therapy several times. I had to do it for my job, but frankly, it helped me a lot. But one of the things I really do believe is you do not minimize yourself. Who else says this? The Stoics. Go read Marcus Aurelius. He talks about it all the time. Read it in English. You don't have to read it in Latin. Latin is cool, but please, just go read it. You should. It's one of those books everybody should have looked at. It's just little platitudes, but they're good food for thought. And the important thing about that, of course, is why do we care about the Stoics? Well, cognitive behavioral therapy is based on Stoicism. And the Stoics get a bad rap because people say, well, there's no compassion. You're just saying tough it out no matter how bad it is. No, we're not saying that. The Stoics are not saying that. But if you're making a lot of excuses, I guess Stoicism sounds that way to you. And okay, try it your way. See what works. But what I would tell you is don't minimize yourself. You're always going to present yourself as successful and ready to take on a new challenge where you can. By the way, there is a name for people who chronically minimize: depressed. That is going to lead to depression. It's very conducive of depression. If you are telling yourself that you can't succeed or you're helpless or whatever, you are brainwashing yourself. And there's only so much of that you get to do before your mood's going to drop chemically, okay? Please don't minimize yourself. Please try for success. And please also remember that for every success, there's going to be a lot of failures. You have to keep your head up and keep going. Yeah, I want a big, juicy scholarship to Europe. Want to know how many scholarships I didn't get that I applied for? I'd love to tell you. There were a lot of them. I didn't get them. I don't remember them. Why? Because all it took was the one. You have to keep going, and you have to say to yourself, I only need to succeed once to make this work. So please do not minimize yourself. And for the love of heaven, if you're going to see somebody like me, please don't diagnose yourself. Please just tell us what's been going wrong lately for you, really. Because a lot of times we can help you change your behaviors. You don't need a big clinical diagnosis. Oh, P.S., if you're in America, a big clinical diagnosis in your chart can be a rather dangerous thing for future insurance. Just saying. Okay, well, that was cheerful. And now, the terrifyingly eventful part of this podcast. Let's get on to our shoot, shall we? Well, you may remember this week was the mountain gallop in Tehachapi. So my weekend actually was Saturday in Tehachapi and then Sunday in Los Feliz. So the mountain gallop, let's get on to that first. Well, I went up Thursday morning to Tehachapi. I picked up our race packets at their little Chamber of Commerce office, which was very nice. I went over to my hotel. They had everything ready to go. By the way, those of you who've been to Tehachapi, no, I wasn't staying at the hotel where we used to have the retreat. That hotel was a Wyndham, and it's sold again. I drove by it, and it's got a name I don't recognize on it. Happy not to be there. I think it's not doing well. Where did I go? I went to a Fairfield Inn, I think, or Town Suites. I forget. It belongs to Marriott. I went on the wrong side of the freeway, of the 58, on the north side of the 58. It's very isolated, but it's got a Starbucks within walking distance, which is kind of a plus, and it's very quiet at night. You don't hear the freeway. So I get up there and I saw patients Thursday and Friday. And there's more to that story. But the boys came up late on Friday, and we all went to dinner at Red House. Some of you will remember, it's still delicious. And then the next morning, we got up early, and my husband had to drive back, up to the ranch in Acton. But my son and I stayed. We ran the race. We had a really, really good race. You can see a picture of us with our medals. My shrewd son said, "Are these things belt buckles?" Yes, they are. So there is a project, get a belt and hook it on there. But meanwhile, we had a really, really nice race. He did great. I did great. We both came in our age and sex groups, came in 6th. Very funny. There's a picture of us at the starting line. It was beautiful weather. It was very cool. It was just the right time of the morning. We started at 7 a.m. And it was probably about 65 degrees when we started it. So it went really, really as nicely as it could go. I did a great time for me. I did 13-minute miles, like 13 minutes and 9 seconds, something like that. So I did the best time I've done on a 5K so far in the last couple of years, I think. I really came out of it pounded. I was really quite tired that evening and till today, basically. This is, by the way, Tuesday, the 19th of August at 3:20 p.m. as I record this. So that was really great. And then on Sunday, I did take myself back to Los Feliz. I did a lot of walking there, about 3 miles of walking. So this was really nice. So we are now heading on to our next race, which I believe is the Be the Light in September, in late September. And we just had a really good time. However, there were some events. This is where it gets exciting. Yes, the Be the Light is September 21st, in fact. Okay, so you can see our upcoming races, and there's a picture of me doing the Be the Light last year. If you're going to do the Be the Light, do remember you need a flashlight or a headlamp. That's where we saw people getting confused and messed up all over the place. Nonetheless, let us move on to the fluffy books. Fluffy books. I finished Tea, that is the tea you drink, Tea You at the Altar. And I also finished listening to Alchemy and a Cup of Tea late last night. And I am listening to the end of Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands as I knit, because I've gotten to the exciting part. All of these, there are links in the show notes. These are just a pair of series that are really fun. The tomes in Tea, Tea You at the Altar, and Alchemy and a Cup of Tea. Kind of vapid, but happy and really enjoyable. These are the sapphic ones, not oversexed, kind of nice. They have bonus materials at the end of the Kindle books, the ebooks. I could take or leave the bonus material. The actual books are not particularly sexy. Every now and then one of the bonus pieces is, just so you know. But I enjoyed them. They're a pleasant romp. What can I tell you? The Emily Wilde series by Rebecca Thorne is quite a bit smarter, but it is still a light romp. She's basically talking about a researcher in approximately 1910 who's researching fairies. Her sense of humor and her sense of where scholarship gets ridiculous, they're just great. I do enjoy the Emily Wilde series. Her sense of humor is always kind of running up very, very closely to terrifying in places. She does scary funny in a low-key kind of way, really admirably. So I am enjoying this. I did download the third in the series. I think there's only 3. The third one is Emily Wilde's, I think it's Compendium of Lost Tales. You'll hear about it. Now, on to something I really like. You know what I really like? The Los Angeles County firefighters and all the other firefighters who chipped in this week and did not let the fire reach my house. I told you it was eventful. Yeah. If you're around the LA basin, you will know there was a fire up in Acton this week. Oh gosh, Gemma, I hope it didn't scare you. I don't know. Does having a fire burning 1/10 of a mile from your house scare you? It was pretty terrifying. Now, how did that actually work? I wasn't home. I was in Tehachapi, and I'm deeply, deeply grateful. But there is a picture in the show notes You can see the big column of smoke coming up off the top of our mountain. And my home is hidden well up that mountain. It's not in that picture in any way. But it was impressive. It was 400 acres, and it caught really, really fast. Fortunately, and I am so grateful for this, the wind was directed as much away from our house as it could possibly have been. So my husband, who was there for all of it, said, he walked outside and he said, there never was a chance it was going to reach us. The wind was strong and pushing the other way. Bonus points, that was towards the wild country. There is nothing up where that fire went. So it was like 483 acres of nothing burned. I'm not sure if it got an outbuilding. It looks like on a fire map it may have gotten an outbuilding in a minor neighborhood to the east of us. Hard to know. But for a fire that big, burning that fast and that hot, it was just miraculous that there was so little damage. And I'm in love with the firefighters because they were not kidding. I'm sitting at work in Tehachapi talking to a patient. I believe it was my 4 o'clock patient. And a flag drops down from California Edison. The power company says, sorry, your power just went off. I said, my power didn't go off. Then I thought, I'm in Tehachapi. I thought, why did the power just go off in Acton? And a minute later, a flag says, you are ordered to shelter in place. And I'm going, oh, that's not good. And I said to my patient, I have to stop. I think there's a fire near my home. And he said, oh my God, get off the line, So that ended my patients for the day, which was nice. I got an extra 2 hours to, try to panic. And I contacted the husband, who was immediately calm and said, nothing is happening except we have 40 fire trucks on our dirt road. So we can't go in and out. We can't leave even if we want to because the road is clogged with fire trucks. Yeah, poor access. But they got up there and they just slammed that fire. It's amazing how fast they put it out. So my warmest thanks to the Los Angeles County firefighters for doing just a terrific job. Meanwhile, we still have back episodes on Proton. The link is in the show notes. Episodes 181 to 242 are up. I'm not sure why I was able to fit all of those zipped when the other times I had trouble fitting even 40 files, but there you are. Put a lid on it. Okay, so I'm in Tehachapi and I needed heavy cream. No problem. I go to the grocery store. None. I was really shocked, but what they did have was this thing, an imitation heavy whipping cream made with coconut milk and no carbs. So I bought that. It's naturally sweet because of the coconut. It made a really nice substitute in my morning coffee. So there it is. There's a picture of it. I found it at Albertsons. It comes up online at being pretty much everywhere. I've never seen it in our local grocery store, but it's not a big chain grocery. And meanwhile, yes, still carrying the Ketorade recipe. On to the blather. Well, there's a picture of part of my 65th birthday present. Yes, just like we did when I turned 60, we are doing a birthday pavilion. There it is. It is much bigger. My husband went out and got this gigantic tent, and we're trying to be smarter about orienting it so the wind doesn't shred it. If you can believe this, it is 3 bedrooms and a central area. This thing is massive. It could be a studio apartment. So far, they've just set it up, and they have some padding on the floor. But it will develop over time. I think we're like 11 or 12 days. No, we have to be a little further than that. Out for my birthday. I think it's like 2.5, 3 weeks. Okay. Meanwhile, the mountain gallop. I've told you pretty much what we did. The exciting thing was I realized Thursday night when I realized there was a fire near my home, I realized there wasn't a blessed thing I could do about it. And I did cancel my patients because I was just incoherent with fear. And then I started to take stock. I called the boys. Both the boys were perfectly calm about it. They were just watching it. My husband said, he's watching it blow up over the hilltop, the mountaintop. We got about a 5,000 foot mountain, 4,800 foot mountain behind us. And they were just watching it. And they had everything ready to go. And then I thought, oh my gosh, but I didn't get a chance to pack, to evacuate. And that, my friends, is when I realized I don't need to. I had enough clothes for a few days with me. I had a couple of knitting and crochet projects with me. And I had in a safe deposit box in a fireproof safe in a vault in a bank. I had the backup of all my files, all my records, everything that I scanned in. And it was kind of miraculous to sit there and say, this little tiny drive, I mean, this thing is probably 4 inches by 3 inches by 3/4 of an inch. It has everything, pictures, life history, patterns, books, you name it, family records, copies of our birth and wedding certificates, that and our passports and my social security ID and all that, that's all in a safe deposit box. It felt so amazing to say, I'll miss this stuff if the house burns down, but I have everything backed up. So if ever there was a time in your life to go over to Best Buy, you don't need a 4T drive. I'm here to tell you, I've got my whole life on that thing and I haven't even used 1T. A 2T drive will probably do it. They're less than $100 these days. Please start backing up your life. Have a spare in a safe place, either at a relative's home far away or in a safe deposit box. It was a miraculous thing to realize that anything I lost, as long as the pets and the boys were safe, not in that order obviously, anything else I lost was going to be immediately recoverable. I mean, yeah, there's sentimental objects. I don't know, actually. I'm looking around the house going, are there really? I mean, picture books? I don't know. But yeah, I even had my computers with me because I was seeing patients. I could have gotten by just fine on the computers I had with me for the rest of my life. I guess I'd miss my sewing machine, but even they're not that hard to replace. So yeah, it was a pretty exciting thing. So then I sat there and said, what do? I was supposed to see patients for the next 2 hours. What else do you do? I went to Red House Barbecue, which is really a little ironic, I suppose, barbecue at a moment like that. But anyway, I had a lovely dinner. I had the Elder's meal, again, like I had last year. And I had it with pulled pork and a green salad. It was so delicious. And I came home and I sat in bed. And meanwhile, I'm following the fire on an application called Watch Duty on my phone. It's very good. And you can see there's no danger. And meanwhile, they lowered our risk from shelter in place to second level yellow alert, possible evacuation. We were never in the red alert zone. Really, really nice. There were fire trucks up there all night, apparently. I don't know how we would have gotten out if we needed to. We would have driven cross country. You can do it up there. But, the boys stayed ready. They had the animals ready to go, leashed, crated, whatever. Everybody was ready. Roxy would have been safe in her field because that's completely weeded and cut down to nothing. So, it was a scary big nothing at the end. I went to bed at 9 o'clock and I slept like the dead. I woke up the next morning too late to go for a run and said, I don't need to. I'm going to do the run tomorrow. And I had a perfectly lovely Friday seeing patients. The boys showed up and we went out to dinner. And as I said, the next morning we went out on the run. After the run, my son went down to the hotel swimming pool. And I went and I saw the street fair. And I just had a blast talking to all the vendors. And I didn't buy much. I bought a little bag for $8 that just has a logo of a bunch of witches dancing around a fire saying girls will be girls. I deeply enjoyed it. It was just a thing to do. We came back, and I said to my husband, by Saturday night, I said, I feel like I've been on a 3-day weekend. I can't believe I still have Sunday. And so Sunday, I went into Los Feliz by myself this time. Oh, I do want to point out, by the way, before I leave Tehachapi, I did go to the Village Grill for lunch on Friday and had an elder lunch there. I've started eating off the elder menus. They're really good. The portion size is great and the price is fantastic. So there's a picture of the side of the Village Grill with its sign. For all of those of you who've been to CFR when we were up in Tehachapi, I put that picture in there for your nostalgia. It was charming as it always is. They were very, very nice. I also want to point out I was up there on the weekend of Tehachapi's Mountain Festival. This is the 3rd week of August annually. And you can see my son, by the way, sitting at the Village Grill having his victory carbohydrates after the race. Now, meanwhile, before I go to Los Feliz, this was also the weekend of Sunnybank. You remember how I used to always go to Sunnybank out in northern New Jersey. Well, I don't want to go right now because of the various issues. But once upon a time, I made one of the infamous collie scarves to imitate my late beloved collie, Eleanor. And I gave it to my friend Karen. And you may remember Karen died very suddenly this year. And I have an emotional support chicken named after her on my desk in her memory. Well, her husband wrote to me and said, look, here's that scarf you gave her of the collie. And she loved that scarf so much. And he said, I can't bear to see it just sitting in a closet. I'll never wear it. I'm going to donate it at Sunnybank so another collie lover will get it. I wrote back and I said, this scarf has so many happy memories because I made it in honor of Eleanor, but then I didn't want it to sit in my closet. I knew I would never wear it. It's got the white on the legs is the same configuration as the white on Eleanor's legs and the tail and the mane, the whole thing. So I said, I would love you to donate it. And I said, in case you don't know, I put that thing online and said to the Sunnybank people, whoever wants this can have it if they donate to Sunnybank. Karen won because she wrote me the most adorable adoption application that made me laugh and cry, and I sent it to her, and apparently she made a very generous donation. So there is one last picture of the Eleanor scarf at the auction. It got $50. Go Eleanor. One last happy memory for both Karen and Eleanor. Thank you, Joe. It was a great idea. So then I went down to Los Feliz, and I went fairly early, which you kind of have to do if you want to do what I was planning to do. I wanted to catch the 2:51 train back out of Glendale. So I got down to Glendale at, I think, about 10:15. And I took the bus right over to Los Feliz and then caught the dash bus up the hill to the observatory. So you can see a picture. I'm in Los Feliz and I'm looking up the hill at the observatory. Okay, that's how far up I went. And then you can see happy me smiling, standing in front of the building. The building is beautiful. It's a sort of Art Deco-y 1920s, 30s building. Very handsome building. From the building, you can see the Hollywood sign. Apparently, I have a new hobby of taking pictures of myself in front of the Hollywood sign. It didn't work here either, so I stickered myself into the best picture I had. But there is the Hollywood sign. I'm getting closer. It's really on the edge of Griffith Park. It's on an opposite edge from where I was. There are trails there, but we haven't reached that yet. It's too hot. I had a lovely time at the observatory. I went to see a show called Signs of Life, which was very interesting, about the search for life in the universe and what we mean when we say life. And that was where it's very interesting. What are they using as characteristics of being alive? I really recommend it. It was fun to sit in this big, cool planetarium show room and look up in the comfortable chairs at the dome top and watch these fabulous graphics. It was so, so beautiful. And I looked all around. It was very packed. I did not get up to the top, to the dome. I didn't go up there. But I just looked around on all the balconies, walking around the outside. Then I went to the inside because it was getting unbearably hot and it was very crowded. It was delightful because almost nobody was speaking English. And that made me very happy to see foreigners are still coming to America, although some of them told me they're not having good experiences lately. I'm really sorry. You're a brave tourist to come right now is all I can say. But anyway, I walked around on the inside. I looked at the exhibits. There's a really nice exhibit about the history of astronomy in California, which I would recommend. But there's no bad exhibit in there. I did not by any means see everything. I was very tired at this point, so I decided to go watch a show, and the show came up just perfect timing, 11:45, so I saw Signs of Life. Then I decided to go home. I decided to just go back down to Los Feliz, get lunch, and go home because I was afraid I wouldn't make the train. At this point, it was like a few minutes after noon, and I did want to get lunch. And I wanted to go back to my favorite sushi bar, which is Starfish. You should know it by now. And they know me by now. They know my order. It's hilarious. So, I got on the dash bus and went down the hill. All of this is free with your train ticket, except the lady on the downhill dash bus got nasty, the bus driver, and snarled that she doesn't take credit cards. And I said, it's not a credit card, it's a train pass, that my Metrolink pass gets me this for free. She said, no, it doesn't. You need a tap card. Yes, it does. So I had a tap card, so I pulled it out and paid 35 cents, which was nice. And then sitting on her bus, I filed a complaint against her. And I said it as nicely as I could. I said, I can afford this. But I said, you're taking a significant risk with your bus driver fighting with people, because I could hear her arguing with other people. And I said, it's not really safe for her to do that. But it's also not safe if I didn't have that tap card. I'm older, and I would have had to walk down that mountain by myself with traffic in the heat. And I said, are you guys looking for a lawsuit? Because you're going to get one this way. So I said, do me a favor and educate your bus drivers that we ride for free with the rail passes. Now, good news. To my shock, later that afternoon, I got a text back from LA DOT, the Los Angeles Department of Transportation, in their Dash unit. And this woman said, please call me, and said, I'm going to address this. So I called her, Amber. She was absolutely delightful. And we just had a very funny, happy chat where she said, thank you for your complaint. Because she said, you're right. And so she said, we have a thing we call a paddle. They get every morning, and they carry it their whole trip. And she said, I put it on the paddle so they will see this. So there is no longer any excuse for someone to treat you like that. And she said, thank you for being a good sport and paying the 35 cents. And I said, look, I'm a doctor. I'm okay. You know, I'm not asking for a refund. And I think she was glad enough about that, although she would have given it to me, I think. And I said, do you understand she could get harmed? That if she says that to the wrong person, people get violent. And she said, that's exactly what we worry about. And then I said, well, you ought to also think about, I'm an older person. What are you going to do if she doesn't let a 70-year-old on the bus? And she was kind of horrified and said, I hadn't really thought about that. And she said, we do tell them it's not worth it. We tell them you don't have to defend us. If someone won't pay, let them on the bus. Don't cause a problem. It's better for everybody if you just let one person ride free. So we had a very charming discussion. So many thanks to the Los Angeles Department of Transportation, something I never thought I'd say, and good job on the Dash bus. Okay, so after that, you can see the usual stuff, the helplines for LGBTQA plus people, the community resources for all the things I have purchased around my knitting, including books, resources, techniques, whatever patterns. You can see the information on ICE and also the information on how to go to court with the support of the USC law school students so that you don't get arrested by ICE there because you're trying to do the right legal thing. You can see the calendar for fiber events in the Santa Clarita Valley, in as much as I know them. And you can see that I have Labor Day off, and then I also have the 4th through the 7th off. Basically, I'm working 2 days in the middle, and one of those I'll probably take as a sick day. And then you can see the rest of my races. Minerva gets the last word. Okay, Turbo Gal, I owe this to you. There's a picture of Minerva with her automatic feeder. It costs $30. It has a Wi-Fi connection. I can remotely feed her, and I set up a program. We are fine-tuning the program. Turbo Gal said this might help with her weight. You're right. She still comes to me. She spent 4 days coming to me whining and wailing because I wasn't feeding her personally. She thought something was very wrong. At the same time, for $40, for an extra $10, this came with an automatic water fountain. So there it is. So these are plugged in very inconveniently around my bathroom. But it is amazing the peace of mind that I can leave these running and know that she has appropriate food and water all day, including when I travel. Minerva was weirded out because I left her with these to manage her food and water and went to Tehachapi for the 3 days. Because I figured that's a great way to train her. She can't tantrum on me. She was instead in a blind panic when I came home. But she had eaten, and she had been drinking. The litter box was used. Everything was good. So Minerva's last word is, wow, I got an auto feeder and a water fountain. Things are changing. What's going on? Don't we all wonder? What's going on is Minerva's community, that would be me, thought of her and provided for her even in my absence because when we take, sing it with me, when we take care of the community, we are taking care of the individual. When I took care of Minerva at a distance, I felt much better myself because I was doing the right thing. Having said that, everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.